Hi everyone, welcome to the Navigant Credit Union Broadcast Center. I'm GoLocal News Editor Kate Nagel. Thanks for joining us for the Tuesday 4 o'clock news, business, and politics show. We'd like to welcome GoLocal regular Jennifer Lawless, going to be starting up at UVA in the fall. Jennifer, thanks for joining us.
Of course.
Well, you can give us a little bit of a weather tidbit. Apparently it's pouring rain down inside the Beltway as we speak.
It is. It's raining. It's thundering. I think it pretty much reflects both Democrats and Republicans' moods today. So it's pretty perfectly timed.
Is it apocalyptic in D.C.? I mean, let's just start there.
Yes.
I mean, could you have envisioned, as folks anticipated this meeting between President Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin, that this would be the outcome?
No, I mean, I don't think anybody could have expected it to go this poorly. And in fact, his own staff and the people in the Trump administration were stunned as well, not only because they had prepared him to make sure that he was seen as strong against Vladimir Putin, but because they certainly had no inkling that he would ultimately side with Putin over U.S. intelligence agents, right? Like that was something that probably was not even discussed in the preliminary briefings, just because it's so foreign, no pun intended, to think that that's what a U.S. president would do. And, so I think it left a lot of people scratching their heads. And, if we believe today's reporting, Donald Trump left that press conference thinking that he did a great job. And it wasn't until he was on Air Force One en route back to Washington that he started to realize that Democrats and Republicans alike had a different impression.
So as you talk about the president getting the sense of the reaction to this meeting, do we expect to hear anything from the White House? It seems like there's been a limited communications today, but do we see a response to his own summit?
Well, last night they sent out talking points to key reporters and to Republicans who are running for re-election this cycle and to candidates who might be asked questions. And the talking points were somewhat bizarre. CNN read them out loud, and they were just sort of silly because they completely refuted what most people had actually seen, either in watching the press conference or in watching reporting from the press conference, right? So among the many talking points was the White House trying to get out this idea that Donald Trump supports U.S. intelligence agencies and he prioritizes their information and intelligence above and beyond that of Putin and his Russian counterparts. And so that's just completely antithetical to what was stated, but it's clearly important to the White House, not the president, but the White House and his supporters to, mitigate a lot of the damage that was done yesterday.
And how big was it for him to make those statements about the intelligence community here in the country and as it pertained to the elections, and as we've seen, basically taking Putin's side over his own intelligence community?
I think it was really important for a couple of reasons. The first is, it wasn't only that he said he was unsure about U.S. intelligence. It was when push came to shove, he chose Putin's word over U.S. intelligence. And that has led people on both sides of the aisle to say that his behavior actually met the legal standard of what is treasonous, right? The second reason that this is really important is because the logic that he used and the rhetoric that he employed looked strikingly similar to what he did in Charlottesville, where at that time a year ago, he basically said that people fighting neo-Nazis and neo-Nazis were equally to blame for the chaos in Charlottesville. Similarly, both the United States and Russia were equally to blame for Russian interference in U.S. elections if there had been any. And it's striking because that messaging was very, very unsuccessful last summer. To employ that same kind of messaging again now over an issue that is far more dangerous. I mean, this is not to say that, a race riot and anti-Semitism in Charlottesville is not important. It's awful and it's disgusting. But nuclear war is a little bit broader in terms of its consequences. And to Donald Trump, it doesn't seem like there's really any distinction, and there's certainly no learning.
And so let's talk a little bit about that and what folks have been saying perhaps were the president's motivations to be so placating to Putin. A couple pertain to potentially his business interest in Russia. And then there's always the one that hangs around. What does Russia have on him? What's the talk there?
So the talk from Democrats on the Senate Intelligence Committee and people who have had access to a lot of this information is the general sense that, yeah, Russia has something on Trump. And Russia has had information on Trump from the time that he first started doing business there, 30 years ago. The fact that Putin said, no, we didn't really care, he was nothing to us before he was president, flies in the face of both what Trump and Putin have said in the past about Trump's financial dealings with Russia. Republicans are more inclined to back off of that kind of logic because acknowledging that would suggest that there's a possibility of collusion or that there are relationships that they've spent the last 18 months saying don't exist. But I think they too realize that this seems very strange, right? This is not a set of circumstances where for any reason other than the personal gain or protection of Donald Trump, he should be engaging in this behavior.
So you talk about the White House putting out talking points that, as you pointed out, don't quite reflect the tenor of the remarks made at the summit. But what do we expect now? You talk about how that went out, and now we're seeing, especially on the Republican side, candidates scramble. What's the fallout?
I think it's too early to know the fallout because, like everything else that happens with this administration and with this president, something else happens 2 days later. And at this point, it's too soon to tell whether this has legs. I would hope that it does. It seems a little bit different than some of these other incidents. But, if we look at the immediate reaction, John McCain's statement, comments on the part of Brennan and other heads of intelligence over time, suggesting that this is the most unfitting behavior an American president has ever engaged in. You had a lot of Republicans stay silent. And then today, you've also had Republicans start defending the president. Rand Paul basically came out in support of him. Paul Ryan stopped short of in any way condemning him, simply saying that we know Russia interfered with the election. And so if the Republicans don't find this as sufficient grounds by which to start condemning this administration, it's hard to know whether their base is actually going to in any way move from Donald Trump. And if they don't, then I think that creates fewer incentives for the Republicans to hold him accountable. Again, the stakes here seem a lot higher. And the fact that he officially declared war on the media suggests that reporters' stakes are higher as well. But, I feel like we've been in very similar circumstances before, and they've sort of faded away.
So appreciate taking your time to pick your brain on the national side of things. Would love to catch you tacking back here locally as we're in the gubernatorial cycle. We have Democratic hopeful Matt Brown coming into the studio this afternoon, and it's been a couple weeks since we've talked to Jennifer, and even before the show we said circumstances have changed here. I'm sure you've been keeping an eye on what's happened with the endorsement process within the Democratic Party, issues that the governor has faced pertaining especially even to the SEC with the pay-to-play scheme that was involving Oak Tree, that was her name was involved with, that she returned a donation but did not in fact alert SEC or the state here at that time. So talk with us about where we are in July, heading towards a primary with Matt Brown looking like he's surging.
Yeah, I think Matt Brown should be much happier today than he was a month ago or 2 months ago or 6 months ago. Obviously, taking on an incumbent is very, very difficult. Taking on a relatively popular one in a state that has had a history of sometimes turning a blind eye to this kind of corruption is also tricky. That said,
relatively popular. Let's just say that she doesn't really move beyond that 40% threshold.
Fair point. Except keep in mind, Donald Trump is very similar, right? And it seems like that might be the magic number. But what I will say is that the electoral environment is one in which people behaving badly, people trying to screw over the little people, people lying and manipulating is something that the American people are beginning to push back against, especially in Democratic primaries and especially in cases where they think that they can substitute somebody that might have questionable morals or ethics or judgment under certain circumstances with somebody else. Now, I don't know what the polling on Raimondo's sort of personality traits are. And overall approval rating is tricky because it has so many different components. But, I think that if Matt Brown spends the next couple of months making the case that she has some questionable judgment, and this is a time where certainly on the Democratic side of the aisle, we can't succumb to that because look at what's happening on the Republican side. It's an argument that could ultimately have traction.
And let's talk a little bit about the money game. Obviously, the war chest of the governor is formidable. And just had a discussion last week with former Congressman Bob Wagand, who he took the position that, look, she's got so much money, she's just going to be bombarding media buys with her ads. You know, can he overcome the money game?
Well, you know, I would say two things. The first is Rhode Island's a one media market state, right? So it costs a lot less money to run and to be on broadcast TV and to have targeted cable in Rhode Island than it does in many, many other states. So right off the bat, what it costs to win is less. That doesn't mean that having a financial advantage doesn't matter or isn't helpful, but ultimately what Matt Brown needs to do is make sure that he can run the kind of campaign that he wants to be able to run, that he thinks can be effective, regardless of how much money she has. The second thing is, in 2006, he raised a ton of money from donors throughout the country who, if he's any kind of politician, he's maintained a lot of these relationships with. And as he hits the final stretch and as he can show in public opinion polls and in surveys, whether they be internal or conducted outside, that he's surging, that's a good way to potentially tap some of these national connections. Now, primaries are hard. A lot of donors don't want to get involved in them. But he had raised most of his money 10 years ago, 12 years ago, also in a primary. So, you know, I don't think he's a typical candidate in terms of facing some of those obstacles.
So he's going to be in here shortly, Jennifer. He's going to be talking about his jobs and economy plan. Now, everyone knows he's running fairly to significantly to the left of the governor. If Matt Brown were to emerge from the primary facing a Republican independent challengers, you know, how does someone that left stack up here in Rhode Island if he doesn't tap back to the middle?
Well, it's tricky because there are competing dynamics, right? The first set of dynamics have to do with economic policy and the fact that Rhode Islanders have traditionally been okay with Republican governors when it comes to finances. But then on the other side of that, there are a lot of social policies and an increasingly socially progressive electorate in Rhode Island that wants to make sure that a governor, especially as abortion rights and potentially other social policy issues come back to the states, will protect a woman's right to choose and do everything else, right? So, you know, I think that it's going to be a matter of demonstrating that on the economic front, he's solid, but on the social policy front, there's no question that he's the best choice.
Well, we're going to continue to keep a close eye here in the gubernatorial race. Of course, all the talk, Trump and Putin. Jennifer, I appreciate your taking the time to Skype in today.
My pleasure.
Take care down there, okay? Jennifer Lawless, American University, moving to UVA, professor of politics there this fall. Appreciate, as always, taking her time to Skype in with us to talk politics. We'll be right back to talk local business here in the state. Don't go anywhere. Hi everyone, welcome back to the Navigant Credit Union Broadcast Center. I'm GoLocal News editor Kate Nagel. Would like to thank Jennifer Lawless taking the time, as she usually does, to talk national politics with us here. we're going to get a lot more local right now. I'd like to welcome in Stephanie Casanelli-Taylor. Thank you so much for joining us today to talk about Zaxi. Now, you come from a long tradition of jewelry here in Rhode Island, and you are making a name for yourself with this line. So talk with us a little bit about Zaxi and your roots in jewelry and how this has all evolved.
So Zaxi was just launched and born the beginning of April. Zaxi was about 4 years in the making, coming as a sister company out of Gennaro Inc., which is a third-generation family-owned accessories business here in Rhode Island. I am third generation. The business was started by my grandfather. We saw a shift in the market of what we do. Gennaro Inc. always distributed to retailers across the country and into Canada. And we just realized that it was time to pivot a little bit. So we sat and brainstormed for a very long time and came up with Zaxi. Zaxi brings to life the beautiful product that Gennaro has always been proud of shipping and distributing all across America. But there's a little bit of more behind it, because Zaxi, the brand, is meant to be not only just about the jewelry, but about what we stand for. And that is the vision that we are here to make every woman recognize and feel and find her beautiful from the inside out. So it just has a lot, the product, the design, and everything behind it has a lot of the core beliefs that we feel so strongly about and have always in Gennaro and within Zaxi as well.
So how'd you come up with the name Zaxi?
So Zaxi, it was a very long process actually. We wanted it to be something personal that meant something and that kind of grounded, what the company has been about for so many years as family. So Zaxi is the three names of my two sons and myself, Zachary, Jax, and Stephanie. So that's how we came up with Zaxi.
Came up with Zaxi. So coming from the Gennaro tradition, when you're breaking out, and as you said, this isn't just a breakout, it's a big process. How did you go through? I mean, there's some great product here. I mean, really developing the line.
So Gennaro Inc. has always been about sparkle, and it's a passion of mine. As you see my shirt, Sparkle Like You Mean It, which is one of our taglines. And we always sparkle like we mean it. We always have a little extra. And when we're working, in the past when we've worked with our customers, we have to be very price conscious, being a wholesaler. We wanted to offer the customer a product that is price conscious, but also has all of the beauty that in the past we've kind of had to skimp on a little bit. So we put all the beautiful CZs and amazing metals and craftsmanship kind of back into the product and made it our own. And because we really believe everybody should sparkle like they mean it, even our most trendy summer type pieces will always have sparkle. All of our pieces have these signature lobster claws that are covered in stones.
If we could zoom in, you could see that the lobster clasp is, okay.
It's covered in stones. Even the little backs to the earrings are casted. They're tiny, but they all have a little tiny stone in them. And everything's marked with our name. So that is just, and we carry that throughout. And it was a process creating this product and being able to do that because it wasn't easy, just producing the product in this way, because that's not the way we've always done this.
And so how have you found it working? What's it like to be in the jewelry business in Rhode Island in 2018?
It's, it's been good. The business has been very good to us, but retail is tough, so our retail business has been tough. Zaxi, just being 3 months old, we're learning a lot. We're really excited to get it out there. Everybody that sees the product is just amazed with the design and the quality. So we're really excited about that. We're doing a big bridal business within Zaxi. There's a whole bridal line, and that's been one of our biggest wins because we do have on-time stylists that are there all day long ready to help brides pick out their own jewelry and for their bridesmaids. And the site, Zaxi.com, is pretty tech savvy. We have a few really cool features on there, one being the stylists and customers are able to share pin boards back and forth, so you can share your bridesmaids' dresses and say, this is the bridesmaid's dress, please tell me what jewelry goes with this. And we've found that's been amazing.
Got some great pieces here. I mean, I don't even know where to start. I mean, this looks like just a signature piece.
That is, yeah. So this is a piece that comes from the signature collection, and it is all CZs, and inside is all of our logo. Our logo is, I actually am wearing this, we call it the ZX, and it stands for fearlessly bold and unapologetically authentic. So we try to have that somewhere in our product. But this was one of the first signature pieces created, and we love this. It's called the Sugar Mama collar. And all of our pieces have really cool names because we're a little sassy.
Have fun ones. I do know that there's some tropic like it's hot
yes.
earrings out there as well. So, I mean, this was a big one. The social media presence for Zaxi has been phenomenal. I mean, let's talk a little bit about that. You must be geo-targeting to the nth degree, because this is one of the pieces that I saw on the line. Talk with us a little bit about this one.
Yeah, so this is called Hot in Havana, and this comes out of our Havana Nights collection. And again, you know, you'll see that this trend is out there, it's big, but ours has the chain is rhinestones all the way to the back, which you're not going to find that out in retail stores. And it's just, yeah, the little touches, there's stones all over it, and there's earrings and a whole collection that kind of goes back to this. But this was our pop of color for the summer season, so we were really excited about that.
Yeah, talk with us about that. Talk with us about the process of approaching seasonal lines and saying, what are we going to do next, and how many pieces does that entail, and where the trends are going?
Yeah, that's been exciting because we have some creative freedom. You know, when you're a wholesaler, you have a little bit, but you have to work with the retail companies to work back to their clothing and apparel, and there's very specific colors and design, and like I mentioned, price points you have to work into. So here, we just look at big picture. We sit down with our merchant team and designers and come up with, okay, these are all of the big colors for the season. What is Zaxi? Where do we feel like we fit in? And then we create from there. And then we try to create, you know, small collections that will sit together but offer something to all different types of customers. This was another, you know, this is very different than that, but this was a beautiful pink group that we did for the summer as well. Yeah. Again, all of the stones have rhinestones all around them. And
you're going to shine your gleam.
Yes, we like
Gleaming.
it. Yes, we love it. So, you know, we try to keep it tight and small and really put out there the important pieces that we know resonate and are going to be able to also be worn with a lot of different things. So it's almost like an investment piece.
And so how big is the Zaxi operation? What are we talking here? Who's around the table?
So we have an amazing team. We're really, really excited. We have been able to leverage some of our Gennaro folks, which has been awesome, but we did create a whole social media department. We worked with an incredible marketing firm out of Boston called Toth & Co., and they were amazing. They helped us with the brand ethos and create the website. And then in-house, we have, you know, a lot of tech behind the website that we're constantly changing. We have marketing as well, videography. We do all of our photography in-house, which it's been so much fun learning this. It's just a whole new business. So the Zaxi team right now is probably a micro team of about 10 people, and we're hoping to grow from there.
We like lean and mean here.
Yes, yeah. You know, it's nice to be able to, you know, we've always loved to employ in Rhode Island as well. You know, we've been here for a long time, so.
And want to continue to be here for some time.
Yes,
although you're taking off to New York to show the wares in the coming weeks.
Yes. We have a big launch event at Gold Bar in New York City on August 8th. And we are actually being co-hosted by a stylist that works for NBC, so we're really excited about that. And we're hoping to get some great press and editors, and again, just showcase what we do and what we've been doing.
Branch out a little bit. And speaking of branching out, I see some Zaxi wine glasses here. And if you can see it, it's sparkling in the stem. So talk a little bit about that. Are you looking to expand even beyond jewelry?
Yeah, our whole jewelry was, you know, when we talked about the plan down the road, we wanted to be a full lifestyle accessories company. Zaxi is here, again, not only for the products, but we want people to understand our site is a place to come to help you with your next moment. Another tagline of ours is every moment counts, and we believe that. So we have something for every moment. Our site is actually navigationally set up to shop that way as well. So if it's date night, girls' night out, if you're going to brunch with your friends, you can actually search by what product you should buy to do those
for the event.
Yeah. So that's why we love wine. We love a good cocktail at Zaxi. So we had some beautiful wine glasses developed. There's a decanter set. We sell those on the site as well.
These are just gleaming. They're a lovely piece. So speaking of pieces, again, the summer Havana collection is just amazing. When can we expect to see some fall wears?
So fall will be launching on the site in about 3 weeks.
Okay.
So yes, yep, fall is just about to be underway, and holiday will be up in September. So we're moving right along.
Big focus on holiday?
Yes, holiday is a big focus for us because everybody loves sparkle and holiday, so we're certainly going to take advantage of that.
Well, appreciate your coming in, Stephanie, to talk about Zaxi, again, in the Rhode Island tradition, coming from Gennaro, again, branching out, making sure that every woman sparkle. We're going to be sure to have links up to Zaxi. You can check out more of the wares after this, but again, with an emerging business with a strong Rhode Island tradition, appreciate your taking the time to come in. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Don't go anywhere. We're going to be right back with Democratic gubernatorial hopeful Matt Brown. Hi everyone, welcome back to the Navigant Credit Union Broadcast Center. I'm GoLocal News editor Kate Nagel. I'd like to welcome a familiar face, Democratic gubernatorial hopeful Matt Brown. Thanks for coming into the studio today.
Thanks
I appreciate it.
Yeah, happy to be here.
Big day. Announced your jobs and economy plan this morning, so had to have you here in the studio as you put even more meat on the bone of your campaign heading towards the primary. So let's just start about how you took this from a holistic vision of how you wanted to present it.
Yeah, great question. Well, I think holistically the economy isn't working for people. So for most people what matters is that the cost of everything they need, housing, healthcare, education, childcare, have gone up and up and up and up for years, and they're still going up. And what people earn, their wages, their incomes have stayed the same. It's a flat line. And so that means that life is getting harder for people. So it's just not working. And so what I put forward today is a comprehensive plan to create an economy that works for everyone. So we're talking about creating thousands of good jobs, lifting wages, and at the same time addressing some of our most pressing needs in our communities.
So you broke it down into sort of 5 different buckets here of how you're approaching it. Let's talk about affordable housing and the need here in the state.
Well, we're in an affordable housing crisis. We have one of the most serious affordable housing problems in the country. We're at the bottom of the pack. If you earn $50,000, which is almost median income in this state, you can afford to buy a home in Central Falls and parts of Providence, and that's it. And renting a home is not a lot easier. It's really hard to find a place to live that people can afford here. So the problem is there's not enough housing. The builders want to build. They want to build all kinds of houses, including affordable housing for working families. We would need to be building 3 times as many houses per year as we are now to meet the demand over the next 10 years. So what I'm proposing is that we do that we work with the cities and towns to cut the red tape, to provide some incentives so that we can unlock a housing construction boom, including housing that we need for working families. So we're talking about building 40,000 houses over the next 10 years, creating 9,000 jobs per year, that's the projection, lowering the cost of housing, solving the affordable housing crisis, and this would really, could really put us back on the track of population growth, because one of the most important things that is holding back population growth is the difficulty of finding a place to live. So this would do a lot of good things for the economy and for the people of this state.
So talk a little bit about those nuts and bolts for, especially from the city and town level, the enabling factors to sort of enable the spigot to sort of be turned and allow this to happen.
Well, some of it is cutting red tape, and we want to help to do that and make it easier to build houses. It's one of the hardest states in the country to build a new home, and has been for a long time. So we need to make that easier. Secondly is the funding for the cities and towns. So for many, many years and right up through the current day, our state, including Governor Raimondo, has cut taxes and given tax breaks to corporations and the wealthiest individuals. And that has raised the burden on cities and towns, compelled them to raise property taxes so that they can fund the schools. So right now, Rhode Island is one of the bottom 5 states in the country for the state funding of schools. So we want to provide some incentives for cities and towns so that the builders can build more housing, more people can move in. That includes children moving in who need to be educated. We want to provide some incentives for them in terms of more state funding for the schools, and to lift some of the burden on the cities and towns. And the way we're going to do that is just to repeal some of those extreme tax cuts on the wealthiest corporations and individuals that the state has put in place, that Governor Raimondo has put in place, and that President Trump piled on top of. And we need to pull back on those and provide some more funding to our cities and towns for schools.
So that's one of the facets of the Jobs and Economy Plan. Let's talk energy. This has been a central tenet to your campaign so far.
Yeah, again, this does 2 things at once. It would create a projected 11,000 jobs, good jobs, building out our wind system, our solar system, but it would also, of course, provide a critical need going forward, which is clean energy for the future, which is where the world is going. There's going to be clean energy. We're moving away from fossil fuels. The question is, who gets the benefits of that? And I want Rhode Island to be on the cutting edge of that so that we get the benefits, that we are creating our own energy, creating jobs in the process, exporting the surplus as a source of revenue for years to come, instead of being behind like we have been before and having to depend on other states for this, and our money would be going out of state to import. So it's a win-win. It's good clean energy for the future, and it's a lot of jobs for people, good paying jobs for people starting now.
And we've seen here, it's a delicate balance a lot of times between cities and towns and open space and areas, when you're talking onshore land, wind, and you're talking solar. Talk with us about achieving that balance between open space and the need for economic development.
Yeah, we can't do what we're doing now. At this point, we've got people who care about the environment pitted against each other, people who care about climate, eager to get wind farms and solar panels up, talking onshore now, and people who are traditional environmentalists concerned about environmental protection, protecting the open land and open space and forest. And we can't have environmentalists pitted against each other. We've got to come together, and the problem is that there's been no plan at the state level. So no comprehensive plan of how we're going to build a fully clean energy system, which has left everyone sort of doing their own thing and created all these problems and conflicts. So we're going to come in with a plan, and in terms of solar, it starts with looking at the places, prioritizing the places, creating incentives for the places to put solar panels that do not harm the environment, that are sensitive to environmental protection. Rooftops, brownfields, urban areas, and so on. So we're going to have a comprehensive plan to do that, and that's what we need desperately in this state.
And there's some economic facets to your plan as well. I believe it's under the category you call economic fairness. You're a proponent of raising the minimum wage.
Yes, I'm pushing to raise the minimum wage to $15 an hour. So if you make what is currently the minimum wage, for a family of 4, you're living in poverty. And we just can't have that in the United States of America. There's so much wealth here, and we've created a system of such steep inequality, and it's so unfair, and it's so bad for people and so bad for the economy. So we need to change that. We need to have a minimum wage of $15 an hour so that everyone who's working can make a living, can create a life for themselves and their families. One of the things I hear all the time across the state, and have for years, but it's getting worse, is so many people who say they love Rhode Island. It's the most special place in the world. All I want to do is stay here and raise my family here, but there's not enough opportunity. I can't make enough money to make a life here and to stay here. And the second thing you hear, of course, from parents, and I'm a parent, my kids are 12 and 10, so they're not at this age yet, but parents with older children who are grown who say, all I want is for my kids to come home and live here and be close to me, but there's no jobs and there's no opportunity. The jobs don't pay well enough for them to make a life here. So we need to raise the minimum wage, create jobs, make sure that everybody can find a good job and everybody can make a living off the job that they have.
And we've heard the minimum wage debate here the last several years up at the General Assembly. And of course, we hear from the flip side from especially small business owners, some in particular who say, I can't afford to have this increase in the minimum wage. I'll either have to lay people off or close. What do you say to those folks who counter with that?
Well, we're providing relief for small businesses. So right now, we have a system in this state that where we have a flat corporate tax.
This is segueing into sort of the fourth.
Well, they're all connected.
They're all
It's
connected.
a comprehensive plan. So we have a system where with a flat corporate tax, meaning that the biggest corporation pays the same tax rate as the very small business. That's not fair. I mean, the big corporations already have subsidies. They operate overseas where they get cheap labor. There are all kinds of benefits that they have, and particularly these monopolies. The small business people, they're breaking their backs, sometimes for generations, to start and run their small business, and they need some relief and some support. And they're the future of our economy. I mean, this is a small business culture. It's a small city and town culture, a small business culture. And we need to give them some relief and give them a break. So we're proposing doing what 14 other states have done, which is a graduated business tax, meaning that the biggest businesses pay a little bit more, so we can cut taxes and fees for the smaller businesses. And that ought to provide them some of the relief that they need.
Okay, another facet to the plan here. Let's also talk about, finally, what you call economic democracy. Now, this is to allow workers to have a vested interest in the businesses in which they work, and also allow those businesses to have this happen.
Right. So one of the reasons that there's been such economic inequality in this state is that it's really only the very, very rich people who own stock, who own a piece of the business. And, you know, we talk about democracy as such an important principle, of course, and it is in our political system. We need more democracy in our economic system, meaning that you have more opportunities in the state for people to be owners of their business where they work, to have worker cooperatives, to have an ownership stake in the business, so that they get a little bit more of the benefits of their labor. Right now, as you know, that we've got a system in this state and in the country where all of the increased productivity, all of the improved efficiency, and all of the good work that our workers have done for so long, all the benefits of that have flown to the top, to the CEOs and the corporations. We want some of those, more of those benefits to come to the workers.
And so you talk about also enabling businesses to allow this to happen, to provide some incentives to the businesses to do this.
Provide them some incentives, and also to start a center in the state that can then provide training and support to start these kinds of businesses, to give workers a right of first refusal, so that if a business owner is going to sell his or her business, there's an incentive to provide a right of first refusal to sell it to the workers of that business. So there are several pieces to this that we're going to be putting forward, but the idea is to make sure that the workers in the state get a little bit more of the profits of their work.
So the plan unveiled today will provide more of the nuts and bolts, but I think you pretty much ran. Is there anything that we didn't cover?
I think we did it. Good job. That was well done.
So we covered jobs and economy. We're here in the middle of July. You are steaming ahead towards the primary. What's up for the next few weeks?
Well, more house parties. You know, this is a grassroots campaign, and so we set out to do 30 events in 30 days in June, and I think we ended up doing 40 or more. So we're going to keep doing that, because this, you know, this campaign is about a real democracy, meaning, you know, it's not just the ads and the sound bites. It's being out talking to people, telling them the kinds of ideas that we've been talking about here, but more importantly, listening to their ideas and to the challenges that they're facing, and understanding what we can do to improve their lives, to solve the problems that they're facing. So we're going to be doing these conversations, continuing to do them all across the state. We just had a big signature push, got thousands of signatures on the ballots, all volunteer driven. So this is a people-powered campaign, and it's going to continue to be all the way through the election.
Well, we're going to continue to keep an eye on it here. Of course, continue to report on it as well. But candidate Matt Brown, thank you for taking the time to come in today.
I appreciate it.
Don't go anywhere. I'll be right back here in the Navigant Credit Union Broadcast Center. Hi everyone, welcome back to the Navigant Credit Union Broadcast Center. I'm GoLocal News Editor Kate Nagel. Thanks for joining us for this very busy day here at GoLocal, but tends to be the norm. We were in the Alex and Ani Lounge at 2 p.m. with Matt York, Boston-based singer and songwriter who comes often here to Rhode Island. Played us a few songs. He's going to be playing at Sandy Woods in the coming weeks. You can see that on GoLocal as well. Rachel Dunes was up at the 3 o'clock hour with Lifestyle. There's a big scavenger hunt on Block Island and more. If you check out the 3 p.m. show, 4 o'clock was Politics in Business. We had Jennifer Lawless down at the University of Virginia talking about the fallout inside the Beltway from President Donald Trump's meeting with Vladimir Putin and what potentially is in store next. We also tacked back here when talking with Professor Lawless about the gubernatorial race. Stephanie Casanelli-Taylor with Zaxxy, the new offshoot of Gennaro, a 3-generation jewelry company here in Rhode Island going direct to consumer, brought some of her work in and talked with us a little bit about the business model and where she hopes to be in the strong family jewelry tradition here in the state. And then finally, Matt Brown, Democratic gubernatorial hopeful, today unveiled his jobs and economy plan, went through point by point what Matt Brown is looking to achieve if elected governor. We'll be back in studio here tomorrow at GoLocal. In the meantime, be sure to check out golocalprov.com and find us on Facebook. I'm GoLocal News Editor Kate Nagel.